My name's Aaron Thormundson, as he failed to say my last name. I figured that might be slightly important. And I'll be responding to some claims made by the affirmative side. The first speech which was made stated that tuition was cheaper in the 1970s and was at that point practically free, which was true for the most part. But the truth is that the reason why people aren't getting into college isn't necessarily college costs. It's in general the test scores which they are getting previous to coming into the colleges. For example, Matthew, I can't pronounce his last name, I'm sorry, I would if I could. Slate Magazine says, both today and back in the good old days, the overwhelming barrier to kids with poor parents facing the intensive four-year college isn't tuition, but the low college admission test scores. What the problem is with people getting into college isn't necessarily their ability to pay for it after they're in there, but their ability to get in there in the first place because of getting poor high school education or inability to pay for SAT or ACT classes. The first speech also stated that there is $1.3 trillion in debt currently, and we need to solve that problem, which is absolutely true, but making tuition free at this point doesn't solve the currently existing debt. An article from the Orlando Sentinel stated that programs that help graduates manage the debt should be a higher priority, meaning that the programs which will help manage the $1.3 trillion in existing debt should be what we're working on, rather than making tuition free at this point. Additionally, free tuition doesn't solve the whole problem with college costs. In fact, tuition in the CSU system only makes up less than about a quarter of the total costs, with over half of it being living and room and board costs. We need to target the entire problem if we're going to actually fix the $1.3 trillion. With students having as high as $30,000 to $100,000 in debt, getting rid of 25% of it or less than that doesn't fix the true issue at hand. Another point was made that it will increase the number of poor and minority students who have access to college. And that simply isn't true for the most part. Firstly, by overworking the system, less students will be able to get in at all. There's only going to be a certain number of spots available in the public education system. And if we're unable to raise enough funds, because we're unable to charge tuition when more students are demanding to come in, students just won't be able to come in. For example, taken from a New York Times article, unable to raise additional revenue through tuition increases, California's community college turned away 600,000 students. This was during the recent economic downturn. The CC system in California has nearly free tuition. There's a small credit charge, but it is the closest thing you have to a free college in California. And when funding was slashed during the recent economic downturn, rather than being able to bring in more students, they had to turn away over 500,000 students to the system. Which shows that if we are unable to change the income by raising tuition in times of hard economic situation, people simply will no longer get the education which they're asking for, whether or not they wanted it, or were able to test into it. Additionally, I'd like to make the point that by making tuition free, you're making the college easier to get into, which increases the desire for other people to come into it, whether or not they're poor. So you're going to have more affluent or rich students who could have gone to a higher-end university applying to the public education system. This will push out students who have lower test scores, which generally come from poor or minority districts, which will therefore decrease the diversity which exists in our public education system as is, by directing these students who would have gone to a private school to a public school. These are backed up by another article from Slate Magazine saying that free college tuition does not improve the fact that students from poor, generally minority districts are unable to pay for the SAT and ACT. That's the fact where I got that statement from. So yeah, thank you very much.